We begin this hour with the Trump transition and the latest controversy over the president-elect's vow to impose huge tariffs on Canada and Mexico. That threat touching off a back and forth with the Mexican president over drug trafficking and the border. CNN's Elena Treen is outside the Trump transition headquarters with new details. Elena, so the president-elect and the Mexican president, they said that they had a great and wonderful call, but they are also publicly disagreeing about the contents of the call for the second time this week.
That's right. They have two very different impressions, Alex, of exactly what was said on that call. Donald Trump, for his part, argued that Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, agreed to closing down the southern border. She later said that wasn't true. I'm going to read for you some of what we have here. So Trump had said that he had just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She has agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. And then we had a statement from Sheinbaum herself disputing that characterization of the call. She wrote, quote, "Everyone has their own way of communicating, but I can assure you, I give you the certainty that we would never, and we would be incapable of it, to propose that we would close the border. It has never been our approach, and of course, we don't agree with that." So again, very different views of what was said. But I think this is really a very important moment, Alex, because we know that so much of what Donald Trump had promised to voters and Americans throughout his time on the campaign trail was to really crack down on crime and illegal immigration into the United States. And this relationship that he is going to have with Sheinbaum, I would remind you that they have not had a working relationship in the past. She was not in power when Donald Trump was first in office. This is going to be a very important relationship moving forward to see how the two can come to some sort of agreement over Donald Trump's big plans for cracking down on immigration. And as you mentioned, it's also important to note that this came just days after Donald Trump had promised and really vowed to have massive tariff hikes on both Canada and Mexico, saying as much as 25% of a tariff on all goods coming into the United States from those countries. That's also something we saw Sheinbaum really push hard back on, saying that essentially Mexico would respond itself with its own retaliatory tariffs if Donald Trump were to do that.
And regarding those potential tariffs on Canada, you have new reporting about the country's prime minister. What can you tell us?
That's right. We are just getting this news in right now. Breaking news, Alex. Essentially, I'm told that Donald Trump is going to be hosting Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago this evening, that they're expected to have dinner. I have not gotten further details from that. I'm told that we should get some sort of readout once it is completed, once it finishes, once they learn what was said. But again, I think very clear that this conversation over whether or not Donald Trump is actually going to make good on that vow of imposing a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada. I'm sure that will be a major topic of discussion tonight, and really the first time we've seen these two leaders meet in a very long time, and definitely since Donald Trump won the 2024 campaign. Alex?
Yep, I think it's fair to assume that is going to come up over dinner. Elena Treen in West Palm Beach, thank you so much. Meanwhile, President Biden is criticizing Trump's tariffs as what he called counterproductive and urging his successor to not, quote, screw up the relationship with Canada and Mexico. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez has more on that for us. So, Priscilla, this is quite notable because the president has not been terribly critical of his predecessor and now successor since the election. But what's he saying?
Well, he's being blunt about what these tariffs could mean, both to the relationship that the U.S. has with its neighbors, as well as to consumers. And of course, recall that President Biden, when he came into office, had sought to strengthen alliances around the world, and that included Mexico and Canada. So you could understand from that perspective why the president is saying that he doesn't want to screw up those relationships. But he was also, again, very straightforward about what he thinks could happen should these be enacted. Take a listen.
I hope he rethinks it. I think it's a counterproductive thing to do. You know, look, one of the things you've heard me say before that we have an unusual situation in America. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and two allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
Now, experts have also said that if enacted, these tariffs could wreak havoc on America's supply chains and again impact consumers. And the president went on to say that there is still more work to be done to lower costs for Americans. So, of course, the president-elect Donald Trump has already received some pushback in response, not only from President Biden, but also, as you heard there from Elena, Mexico and Canada. Now, President Biden told reporters today that he does expect to talk to President-elect Donald Trump over the course of the transition when asked if he would. So certainly this, you can imagine, would be one of the issues that the president would raise with Donald Trump if and when they do speak again. But again, Alex, certainly the warning both from economic experts but also from the president is that these tariffs, if enacted, could have significant impacts both for the relationships and for Americans.
Yeah, and real questions about whether it's a negotiating tactic or he actually plans to go through with it. Priscilla Alvarez, thank you so much for that reporting. Our political experts are now